you've got strong feelings on biological men participating in women's sports after they declare themselves trans. And there's been an egregious example of this in the news just this weekend where a high schooler, okay, let me make sure I get the facts right. This is from The Blaze. It's out of Cherokee County, North Carolina, where a transgender player, male to female, it's always male to female, spiked a ball so forcefully that it caused severe injuries to a young girl's head and neck. There is low-quality video of the incident. You can see it here for the YouTube audience. That's the trans player in the green slamming the ball. It hits her in the face. She goes down hard. You can tell it's an unusually hard hit. And now, so the player collapsed, stayed down for a long amount of time, and now we just got this, again, per The Blaze, that reports, stand by, get my facts, that the girl is said to be still experiencing long-term concussion symptoms, including vision problems, etc., has not been cleared to return to play either by a physician or a neurologist. And I think, Kelly McGuire, did you tell me that they're not playing that team? They've halted play against that team? Yeah, for now they've halted all further play against this team with the trans player. Can you believe this?
Well, I can believe it because of how strong ideology is in pushing us into these kinds of unfortunate situations. I predicted this over a year ago but I was using MMA as an example. If a male to female trans competed in an MMA competition and actually killed another woman or severely injured her and lawsuits ensued, that would put an end to the movement. And maybe this volleyball example, I hadn't seen that one, might do it because, with physical damage like that, and concussions we know are very serious, that could end up in lawsuits, and then that'll bring the movement to an end. When I say the movement, I mean the kind of expansion of our concept of moral rights to include, LGBTQ, gay rights, and so on. Same-sex marriage is the next step to protect trans people. Yes, okay, in general, that seems right and fair, right? You shouldn't discriminate against people based on their gender or sexual preference or orientation and so forth. But as Thomas Sowell says, about society, that there are no perfect solutions. There's just trade-offs. So this is what I call conflicting rights issues, that the rights of trans, in this case, are conflicting against the rights of women to compete against other women, for which women fought for decades, Title IX protection and so on. Back when I was in high school and college, the amount of funding for women's sports was pretty low in the 70s, and it's gotten much better. So, and there's a reason for that. And most of our intuitions, as reflected in polls that say, the vast majority of Americans are against male to female trans competing against biological women, because they're not biological women. They're biological men post puberty. And that's the problem. And so somebody's going to get hurt. And this case you just showed could be an example of that. And didn't you have somebody on, a Frisbee golf player recently?
Yes.
Yeah. Same thing. I mean, just the structure of shoulders, muscles, tendons, bones, ligaments, and so on, they're different. Post-puberty, women are not the same as men. There are overlapping bell curves. You can always find some women that are better than some men, but we're talking about on average. And when you get up into the upper echelons of, say, the top 1% or top 0.01% of athletes, those differences are huge, and it's just not fair. It's just not.
This is what's so egregious, because it's one thing, the Leah Thomas situation was bad enough, right? Mm-hmm. That was bad enough. But at least Leah Thomas swims in Leah Thomas's own lane and can't hurt anybody. This, I mean, you really have to say to parents now, if a trans athlete shows up to play against your daughter, you've really got to think about getting up and walking out and taking her with you. Mm-hmm. I really think I'd say to my daughter, you may not play against that player. Mm-hmm. That is not safe for you. And parents won't do it, even though they may want to, because they don't want to offend. So it's like you're placing your kids' safety below your PC instincts.
Mm-hmm. Right. A lot of Leah Thomas's female teammates were afraid to speak out. Now some of them have. And thankfully, I think that because the International Swimming Organization banned male to female trans post-puberty from competing. So that was a good move. And I think that will be the direction ultimately. It may have to be nudged along by lawsuits in cases like this, but it's certainly, just imagine women's tennis. We just celebrated Serena Williams's, retirement after her massive career. She would have had no career if there were no female.
None.
None. No one would have even heard of her. She wouldn't have made a dime. So it's true, the physical harm, but there's also financial harm. If you're competing for, even on college sports, if you're competing for sponsorships or fellowships, tuition scholarships based on your athletic performance, and college costs you $50,000-$60,000 a year, and you don't get the money because somebody beat you on the court or on the field, then that is harmful.
You said that you call this the unmistakable, undeniable, unethical unfairness. That's what this is. This dynamic, yes. Unmistakable, undeniable, unethical unfairness that is nothing more than cheating. It's cheating to win. You call people like Leah Thomas trans dopers, which I think is a very effective term. And as we've learned from Chris Rufo, language in these debates does matter. They are trans dopers because they have a testosterone advantage no woman would be allowed to compete with. And even if they can lower it, they never lower it to where a woman actually is. But that doesn't get rid of their limbs and their muscles and their height and all the other physical advantages they have post-puberty.
Massive differences. You're right. So I use that analogy because I'm a lifelong cyclist. And of course, as you know, in our sport, there was massive doping issues, performance enhancing drugs. And the fact is, if you are post-puberty and you've had that huge changes made in your body across the board, 1,000 changes in the body from pre to post puberty. And then you say, well, I'm going to take a year off like the NCAA required and do the testosterone suppressant treatment and so forth. It's too late. It doesn't make that big a difference. There's maybe a 1 or 2%, maybe 5% decrease in the athlete's performance pre and post testosterone suppression treatment. But that doesn't change the 1,000 other things in their body. Their bones are already big and strong, and muscles and ligaments and tendons, oxygen capacity, and so on. It would be exactly the equivalent of taking testosterone or human growth hormone or EPO or whatever as a performance enhancing drug. It does matter. It makes a huge difference. Those drugs are like a 10% difference in sports. And so, and I would say probably puberty is more than 10%, depending on which sport you're comparing male and female, but it's massive and it's just not there. And again, it's an on average difference. Anecdotes don't help us. Well, I know this woman that can beat most of the men. We're not talking about that woman and most of the men. We're talking about on average, the top performers in the field. It's just not fair. And so it's just, it's so wrong on so many levels.
Are you tired of feeling like someone's always watching you on the internet? Maybe advertisers know just a little bit too much about you, or you're concerned about the privacy of your identity. Using incognito mode will not solve the problem either. IPVanish VPN is here to protect your right to privacy and to help you stay anonymous online. IPVanish helps you safely browse the internet without exposing your private details to third parties like hackers, your ISP, or advertisers. When you use IPVanish, all of your data is encrypted. That means your private details, your passwords, your communications, your browsing history, and much, much more will be completely shielded from falling into the wrong, weird, prying hands. Even your physical location will be hidden. IPVanish is offering an amazing 70% off their yearly plan for our listeners with a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's like getting 9 months for free. IPVanish is super easy to use. All you have to do is tap one button. You're instantly protected. Take your privacy back today with a brand rated 4.6 out of 5 on Trustpilot. Go to IPVanish, that's IPVanish.com/Megyn, and use that promo code Megyn to claim your 70% savings. IPVanish.com/MEGYN. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.